Hi everybody, this is Gijs again and I hope you are doing well. This time it is a tutorial video, and in this video I'm going to explain you everything that I think that you need to know about breathable and waterproof clothing. Because how can a garment be breathable and waterproof in the same time? Well, I'm going to give you that answer. And I'm also going to talk about DWR coatings, durable water repellency, because this is of key importance to the well-functioning of our kit. And of course, I'm also going to talk about the constructions, how these waterproof and breathable materials are used in our jackets, for example. So if you want to learn something today, enjoy this video. And welcome back to the tutorial on waterproof and breathable fabrics. Now, to those of you who just tuned into my channel for the very first time, let me introduce myself. My name is Gijs. I am an outdoor gear and bike reviewer, and I'm based in the Netherlands. And I do my work totally independent, so manufacturers are not paying me for my videos, and especially important, of course, that they're not paying me for my reviews. And I like to stay independent, so if you like this video after you've seen it, then please give the video a like at the end and also subscribe to my YouTube channel, because more followers, it means more videos. Now, let's start with what this video is about: waterproof and breathable gear. I don't know about you, but let's dive a little bit into my youth. When I was a kid and I had to cycle to school, I had something like this. This is basically a rain pant, and I of course had the accompanying jacket, and on the inside there is a very waterproof material. Now, this waterproof material shelters me from the rain, but it also meant that the sweat that I was generating when I was cycling to school could not go out of my jacket and out of my pant. So when I ended up at school, I was totally sweaty, and that's definitely something you don't want as a teenager. Now, when I got a little bit older, I started mountaineering and climbing, and actually my first experiences were in the UK, and that's also where I bought my first waterproof and breathable jacket. It was a Berghaus jacket, and the material that was making it breathable and waterproof at the same time was a Gore-Tex membrane. Now, Gore-Tex membrane, this needs some explanation. It was Bob Gore who in 1969, and 1969 is my year of birth, invented that he could take a rod of PTFE, and PTFE is something you all know because it's basically the material that is inside of your frying pan, the anti-sticking material, and it's commonly known as Teflon. One of the other things that we use Teflon in is, for example, in this tape that we use to seal pipes when we are doing some plumbing. Now, what Bob Gore discovered was that if he stretched the PTFE rod, that it would get longer and thinner, and that it became a microporous membrane. Now, a microporous membrane is a membrane that has got tiny holes inside of it. And I always like to explain it with a bag that you get in the supermarket or at your bakery when you buy some bread that is still warm. And inside this fabric, basically this very thin material, there are a lot of tiny holes, because when you put some warm bread in it, of course it's still a little bit steamy, and if the steam cannot escape, the bread goes soggy. Now, basically a microporous membrane does exactly the same thing. It has got tiny holes that are so small that water droplets, rain, cannot pass the material, but the holes are that big that water vapor, our sweat, can pass the fabric. So in that way we've got a waterproof and breathable fabric. Now, a microporous membrane is not the only way to get sweat out of our waterproof and breathable jackets, because there's also the hydrophilic membrane. And a hydrophilic membrane, it's quite easy to understand if you explain it by firemen. If you take a chain of firemen, like they extinguished a fire in the old days. On one side there is a ditch, and the ditch is filled with water, and this ditch filled with water is basically our skin with our sweat. And on the other side there is the burning house, basically in this case the open air, so the outside of our jacket. Now, what happens is a hydrophilic membrane has got the capability of taking water molecules and take the sweat molecules basically and transport them from one fireman to the next, to the next, to the next, until the last one basically releases the sweat into the open air. So that's basically how a hydrophilic membrane works. Now, so we've got two ways of getting rid of our sweat. That is the microporous membrane and the hydrophilic membrane. And now I go to the pot that's been boiling here already for some time. And basically this is a soup kettle, and I use this for events just to keep the soup warm. And inside now there is a water temperature of about 70 degrees. And if we take a closer look, then you can see the water vapor, which is basically our sweat, is passing the microporous Gore membrane in this case. And this setup proves that a fabric can be breathable. Now, in this whole story, I have been using the word membranes. And to complicate things a little bit, every time where I said the word membrane, I also could have said the word coating, because a hydrophilic or a microporous material can also be applied as a coating on the inside of the outer fabric of, for example, our rain jacket. Now, I always like to explain the difference between a membrane and a coating as like a coating is a sort of a paint layer on the inside of the material, while the membrane is basically a layer with its own structure. So that's basically where the difference is. And now I am already starting to talk about constructions, or basically how is the membrane or the coating incorporated in our rainwear. Now for this I have a really nice Dutch treat, and this is what we call a stroopwafel. And a stroopwafel is a cookie, and it is made out of several layers. A cookie on top, a cookie on the bottom, and a layer of syrup in the middle. And if you're not Dutch, well, you all know probably the Oreo cookie, and it's about the same material or same build. Now let's forget about the cookies and start talking about layers. The most simple layer construction that we have is a two-layer system, and I'll pop a picture up here. A two-layer system is basically a membrane, because this is what I like to refer for the easiness of this whole story. The membrane is attached to the inside of a outer fabric. Now the outer fabric is there of course to protect this sort of fragile membrane from us rubbing into rocks, into branches, or just wear and tear from our backpack. This two-layer construction is often used in jackets that are a little bit on the cheaper side of the spectrum in outdoor gear, and most of them, they've got this liner on the inside, and it is a loose hanging liner. And I'll put the picture up here as well. And this loose hanging liner is often made out of a mesh fabric, so that it does not block the evaporation basically of sweat. If you have got a liner that is totally made out of a very tight woven fabric, that might limit the breathability of a jacket, but it will also keep you warmer, and that's why we see it sometimes in winter jackets. Now, the next layer construction that we need to talk about is the 2.5 layer construction. And the 2.5 layer is actually the same as a two-layer construction, so with a protective outer fabric and the membrane attached to the fabric on the inside, of course. And on the inside of the membrane there is a print or a coating, and that is there to protect the membrane from the inside against wear and tear. Now, the big advantage of a 2.5 layer jacket is that it is very lightweight, very packable, while it is still sort of sturdy if you use it in combination with a backpack. And most 2.5 layer laminates are very well built so that they can have a backpack of about 10 kilograms maximum. Now, if you're going on a backpacking trip or a long trekking with a heavy backpack, then you need to resort to a stronger option, and that is basically the 3-layer laminate. And now we're getting back to my cookies, the stroopwafel and the Oreo cookie. Because a 3-layer laminate, and I'll put the picture up here as well, is actually what this is. It's a protective layer on the outside, the fabric, the outside fabric. On the inside there is a strong protective fabric, and sandwiched in between is the breathable membrane. Now, the biggest advantage is of course that the 3-layer laminate is very, very strong. A little bit of a disadvantage is that, of course, because it's strong, it's a sturdier fabric, it also has a little bit of a bigger pack size, and it weighs a little bit more. Now, this is what I wanted to tell you about, basically how membranes are incorporated in the fabric of our outdoor gear. But there is one layer that I did not mention yet, and that is the DWR layer. DWR, it stands for Durable Water Repellency. And the durable water repellency coating, it is absolutely necessary on our breathable and waterproof kit. Now, I will explain this, but first let me demonstrate basically what a DWR coating does on a fabric. And that's what I have this machine for. And this is something that I built myself. It's a copy of an official laboratory test machine, and this one is made out of wood and some stuff that I bought at the DIY store. But basically we've got the fabric that is in an angle of 45 degrees, and here I have got a, well, is this the word nozzle? And it rains basically water drops, sort of rain, on top of this fabric. Now see what happens if I do this. And I've got some water, and I love playing with water. Now what you see is that the water drops, they leave basically the fabric quite immediately. And this is key to the DWR coating, because the water is not getting into the fabric. The face fabric will not get wet. When it would get wet, and you can see two little dark spots on the fabric itself, and this is where the DWR coating is basically damaged. On those dark spots, raindrops, water, gets into the fabric. And when this happens all over the whole jacket, because it's totally worn out and the DWR coating is gone, then you would have a wet out of the whole fabric. And a wet out means that there is a tiny layer of water on top of the whole fabric, or basically in the fabric. The fabric is saturated with moisture, and what happens? The breathable membrane inside the jacket cannot do its work anymore. So that means that you will, well, remain sweaty, and that's something that we definitely don't want, and that's what this DWR coating does. Now, if your, for example, rain jacket starts showing those darker spots, those wet outs, that does not mean that your jacket has come to the end of its life. It's just a matter of applying maintenance. And with maintenance, I'm mostly meaning that you should put the jacket into a washing machine and always look at the care instructions that come with the garment. And washing, it's also good for basically a microporous membrane, because washing, it opens up the pores again. It gets rid of the salt from the sweat, it gets rid of body fat that gets into the fabric, and also because of a lot of dirt that gets washed out. Now with the DWR coating, it's a little bit different, and you should really take care on the care instructions in this case, because some manufacturers, they advise you to iron the outer layer of the jacket on a certain temperature, and some advise you to tumble dry it on a certain temperature. And sometimes it's also a good idea to re-impregnate basically your jacket with a DWR wash-in, and sometimes a spray can do the job as well. Now there's one thing that I think you should absolutely know about DWR coatings. DWR coatings, the majority of them is still made with PFCs, and PFCs are perfluorocarbons. And PFCs are quite harmful to nature, or maybe I should say very, very harmful to nature, because they leave at a certain point the fabric. They wear out and they end up in nature, and they end up in our food chain, and they just don't break down. And that's something we don't want. Now in the past, on fabrics, a C8 carbon chain was used a lot, and that was a very, very sturdy chain, so you hardly ever had to reapply or reactivate the DWR coating on top of a jacket. Now in recent years, most manufacturers went from C8 to C6, which is of course less harmful but still harmful. And nowadays we also see the C4 chain, but still they contain PFCs. Now there are only a few outdoor brands who make, for example, rain jackets that use a DWR coating that is sustainable and free from PFCs. And Vaude and Fjällräven are two of them, and I just like to name them because they deserve some credit in this respect. Now, I've been testing quite a lot of hard shell jackets in the past, and there are a few on my website. I'll put the link in the description below. And I've noticed that in my testing, and I do this basically the same way as this setup, that in the beginning, when the jacket is new, the DWR coating, the normal ones, the PFC ones and the sustainable ones, they perform absolutely super. But after washing them for 3 times in a washing machine on, let's say, what the instruction on the washing label says, I've noticed that basically, and this is bad news, the PFC DWR coatings, they are they are way stronger than the sustainable ones. So in that respect, it's a question for us as a consumer. Do we want a jacket with a durable water repellent coating that is harmful to nature and that we don't have to apply any maintenance or hardly any maintenance? Or would we prefer a more sustainable DWR coating, but then we have to do a little bit more maintenance on our gear? Now, it's a question, I popped it already a couple of times in reviews on gear that I do, and I would like to have your comment in this as well. So please use the comment section below, because that's what it's for, and give me your opinion, your vision, because I'm really curious. This is a subject that keeps me busy for nights on end. Now, there's one fun fact that you should definitely know about DWR coatings, and that's basically how they are constructed. If you would be able to put a jacket with a DWR coating under a very big microscope, then you would see that basically the coating, it's made out of a lot of peaks. I would always imagine the Himalayas. And because it's got all these peaks, the water drops, the raindrops that fall onto the fabric, they are forced, because of these peaks, to go together. And I'll put the picture next to this that maybe explains it a little bit more. And because they stick together at a certain point, because of movement, because of gravity, they just roll off the fabric because they don't have any space to go. Now, what happens with wear and tear and with washing? Those peaks, the Himalayas, they go into more of a rolling landscape. Let's say the hills of Wales. And that means that the water drops can spread out a little bit more and they don't bind together, they don't bead. I think that's the correct word in English. Now, when we go any further with wear and tear and washing, then we will see that those hills, they start to end up basically as a sort of flat Dutch landscape. And that means that the water is not going to be repelled by the fabric, so it can saturate the fabric. And like I said before, the waterproof but breathable membrane cannot do its job anymore, and you will be sweaty inside your jacket. So now you know how a DWR coating is constructed so that it can do its job. And now there's only one thing left for me to talk about, and that is basically give an answer to a question that I get quite a lot. Does a waterproof, breathable fabric always work? Well, the simple answer is no, because also these high-tech fabrics have got their limitations. And one of the limitations is, of course, the weather. Imagine you are hiking up a mountain on a warm, sunny day with a heavy backpack, and you get a shower over you. You take your rain jacket, you put it on, and you start hiking again. Well, of course, you will be sweaty very soon, because the inside temperature and the outside temperature, they are almost the same. There is very little temperature difference, and then the membrane, the breathable membrane, just does not work. But there's also a other problem, and that has got to do with the humidity. Because the same thing that happens with temperature also happens with humidity. If the inside of the jacket, and this is especially the case with hydrophilic materials, if the inside of a jacket has got the same humidity as the outside of the jacket, then there is simply no transport of water molecules, of water vapor. So then also this fabric does not work and you will still be sweaty on the inside. The circumstances for a waterproof and breathable fabric to perform its best is basically when the temperature difference between the inside of the jacket and the outside of the jacket is big enough. And also this is the same for the humidity. Now, one thing that really helps is the factor wind. When the wind is blowing, you get more evaporation basically on the surface of a jacket. So basically your sweat is being pulled out, at least the wind helps. So that's something that really benefits the breathability of jackets. Now, there's also one other thing, and that's of course the human factor, because we are all different, we sweat differently, we behave differently, and we have a different condition. And also this condition, it really determines the amount of sweat that we are producing, so also the amount of sweat that a waterproof but breathable membrane can basically release to the outside world. Now, there is one other little thing, and that is when you are wearing a backpack, then you've got the shoulder straps and you've got the hip belt. And of course you also got a back panel. Most of the time they are very close to the body, and also on these places, of course, a breathable fabric cannot do its full maximum performance. Wow, that was a lot of information about waterproof and breathable fabrics, and still I'm not done yet. So I decided to do 2 more videos on my channel, and one is going to be about how do we measure how breathable a breathable fabric actually is, because that's something that I did not cover. I just showed you that a breathable fabric is breathable. And I'm also going to do a video on what is actually waterproof, because in this video we just took it for granted, but waterproof is a science also. Now, I really hope you liked this video, and if you did, then please give the video a like and leave a comment below. And also, if you've got any suggestions, remarks or questions, please use the comment section, because that's what it's for, and I'm more than happy to answer everything that you can throw at me. Now, if you like this video and you like what I do as an independent reviewer, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel and don't forget to hit the alarm bell so you know when I uploaded a new video. If you're not totally convinced yet, then please take a look at my outdoor gear favorites, and I'll put the playlist up here and also in the description below, and decide after seeing that if you want to support me by subscribing to my channel. So if you keep watching, then please enjoy my videos, and if you're done for today, then enjoy the outdoors and stay safe. Ciao ciao! Bam! And there's one thing that I did not tell you, and this is absolutely a fun fact, because do you know that you are carrying a waterproof and breathable membrane with you every day? Yes, it's your skin. And now on to some bloopers. Now, this is what I wanted to tell you about this was about the microporous membrane, but the microspore. Now, this was on the microporous. Now, this is a good explanation, which is a very complicated name to say in English. I will do this only once. It is called polytetrafluoroethylene, PTFE. I will say this only once. Polytetrafluoroethylene, if I say this correct in English, which is polytetrafluoroethylene. Did I say this correct? I think so. That basically transports water from